Shemel Shai. Yahweh Shemel Shai. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shemel Shai. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
Isaiah 60. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see. All they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then thou shalt see, and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. The multitude of camels shall cover thee. The dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba, shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and they shall show forth the praises of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto thee. The rams of Nebaioth shall minister unto thee. They shall come up with acceptance on thine altar, and I will glorify the house of my glory. Who are these that fly as a cloud, and as the doves to their windows? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despised thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet, and they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shalt suck the breast of kings. And thou shalt know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself. For the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it.
Yahweh Shemel Shah. Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and then sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, this morning news and prophecy. All right, desperation starts wars. Okay, and what we have to understand, all right, that all these nations are marching to the tune of prophecy. Okay, whatever we see happen amongst these nations, okay, whether it's them, going digital, okay, or them being in conflicts and making alliances with certain nations, okay, rumors of war. Well, all this, all right, the will of the Heavenly Father being played out in the earth. Okay, now the latest situation, I don't know if you brothers and sisters have seen, that there's a major protest in Iran. Okay, so what we want to do is link these things to how war starts. Okay, how war starts. Because for a while Iran has been playing it, conservative, because they want to participate in this new system that's rolling out. Okay. And what the West is doing, America and these small hats, they're making it hard, for Iran, all right, to be conservative, and it's the spirit of the Lord, all right, that's making, okay, these nations have no option but to fulfill the will of God. Okay, so we're gonna get to some pre-sales. Got a few videos. This one might be a little lengthy, but just want to explain what's happening and how these things lead to war. How this is a step closer to actual war. Okay, because the Most High is cutting off the ring, and these nations have one option, and that's to fulfill prophecy, man. Okay, so let's get some precepts. Okay, and this is just the Lord showing that He is. We see these things. All right, this is our power. Constantly showing, okay, that He is. Because when you go to Isaiah 46, okay, and let's see, Isaiah 46 and 9. All right, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 46 and 9. It said, remember the former things of old, for I am the Most High, and there is none else. I am the Most High, and there is none like me. Okay, so Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, He separates Himself, okay, from, these false gods, these idols, okay, that the heathens, have always worshipped. Well, He separates Himself through prophecy, man. And that's why He causes the prophets, of His chosen people to proclaim His prophecies in the earth. All right, in His name, in the name of Yahweh, through the Son of His name, Yahweh Shai. So as these things are happening, all right, the glory goes to our power, which spoke these things, all right, to be, you know. So when you go to verse 10, it said, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. Okay, so what we're seeing is the Lord perform His pleasure in the earth. Okay, and it's going to lead all the way up into, all right, Him sending His Son back, okay, to wage war and righteousness on these nations. and to deliver, all right, the remnant of his people, okay, and began a righteous government in the earth. Okay, that's what it's all leading to. That's the pleasure of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Matter of fact, let's go to Luke. Okay, let's get the book of Luke, chapter 12. Okay, this is the book of Luke, chapter 12. Okay, and you go to 32. It says, "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." You see, so it's the Heavenly Father's pleasure to give His people the kingdom. You know, we're going to be changed. You know, we're going to be perfected. We're going to have those new bodies, and the earth is going to be ran according to the righteousness of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. So it's our Heavenly Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. Okay? But before we get to the kingdom, there's certain things that have to happen in the earth, man. And this is what the prophets, okay, are reporting. Okay, the things that have to happen, before, the Heavenly Father, gives His people the kingdom, beginning with His Son Yahushua. Okay, so let's go here to the book of Jeremiah. You know, it's Jeremiah 51. Okay, it's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, and verse 46. It says, "And least your heart faint, and you hear, all right, and ye fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land, a rumor that shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler." Okay, so right now we're hearing rumors of wars, which are these circulating stories. Okay, if you go into a rumor, okay, you go into the word rumor, it goes into a circulating story, man. So we're hearing all these different, stories and speculations of what this nation is doing, what that nation is doing, why this is happening, why is that happening, and it's all centered around eventually leading to, okay, war, okay, because that's the will of the Heavenly Father. You see, the will of the Heavenly Father is war, okay, and these nations are going to get ready to cancel each other out, man. Okay, so let's go. Let's go here. Let's just get this word real quick, and then we'll come back to the precepts. But you get this word rumor, okay? Because we've been hearing these rumors for a long time. Okay, it says a rumor says a currently circulating story or report of uncertain or doubtful truth. You know, so a rumor is a circulating story, okay, of uncertain report. Hearsay, the word on the street. You know, so you have certain things that are true that's happening, certain things are just, gossip and hearsay, okay? But eventually it's going to lead to all out war. See, when this war goes hot, when these nations really lock up, okay, it ain't going to be no rumors then. They're going to lock up, okay? And with the power that these nations got today, they're going to shake the earth, man. You see? So we're just we're just hearing all these rumors, and we make sense of it all by filtering it through prophecy, as we follow these things. But ultimately, we know that eventually it's going to lead into actual war. Okay, it's not going to be a rumor or a circulating story forever. It's going to be actual war. Okay, so let's go back real quick. And that's a spirit because when the beloved brothers from Orlando was here, um, we went into, we was talking about how we just talked about how Iran need to tighten up, man. And the Lord making it to where, hey, they ain't got no choice. You know, they and it's something that they just, declared war on the West. Supposedly, all right, that Iran president declared war, okay, on the West. Europe, okay, America, and the small hats, okay, and then what do you have about a week later? Civil unrest in Iran, okay, and that's how you know that Western governments are playing a part, all right, in this civil unrest. Now the people are catching hell because those sanctions, they cripple you, man. When you don't have access to the global market, okay, that devastates your economy, okay. And Iran is a nation of 94 million people, okay. There's a lot of people to maintain, okay. And when you're crippled, okay, by these sanctions, okay, then eventually, okay, because the sanctions is like a modern day siege, okay, which I got a video that's going to go into that. You see, and eventually within the siege, the people turn on the government, all right, and Esau Edom, he's mastered it when it comes to toppling, these foreign governments and doing coups, is to causing, civil unrest, to cause instability in the economy, okay, and then creates resentment for the government, and he knows how to put agent provocateurs, spread them out, throughout these different cities in the country, okay, and start, a protest, man. You know, this devil, this is what this devil is occupied in. This devil, he's actively occupied in all type of wickedness, okay, throughout the earth, man. Okay, so let's um let's read this real quick, and then we'll segue to the first video. This is Zephaniah 3 and 8 said, "Therefore wait ye upon me," said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai, "until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them my indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." Okay, so it's the Lord's. We're seeing the determination of the Lord, which is gathering these nations for war. Okay, these nations have no choice but to gather themselves for war. All right, thus said the Lord. This is a decree from on high. Okay, and as these nations are gathered for war, He's going to send His Son. All right, to take all these chess pieces off the board at one time. Okay, all these heathen, man. All right, and this is the determination of Yahweh Bashim Shai. This is His pleasure. He's getting ready to make, all right, these nations the footstool of Yahweh Shai. Okay, and Lord will, all right, we're joint heirs, okay, of that, man, of that dominion that's getting ready to come. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's get this first video. Cause we're gonna go back into we're gonna go into some history. Okay, so let's go into the history of how, all right, desperation, okay, and debt, and the country trying to reset itself, leads to war. So let's go into this.
We are taught that wars start with a gunshot, an assassination in Sarajevo, a surprise attack on a harbor, a tank crossing a border. But financial history tells a different story. It tells us that the gunshot is merely the final act of a tragedy that was written years earlier in the ledgers of central banks and the balance sheets of failing empires. War, in its truest sense, does not begin on the battlefield. It begins when the money stops working. It begins when a nation US debt becomes so crushing that the only way to erase it is to destroy the creditor. It begins when the global trade system fractures, and it becomes cheaper to seize resources by force than to buy them on the open market. It begins when the illusion of prosperity collapses, and leaders need a common enemy to save themselves from their own angry citizens. We are standing on the precipice of such a moment. The year is approaching 2026. The global economy is sitting on a $300 trillion debt bomb. The United States is borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days just to keep the lights on. China is facing a deflationary...
America is borrowing 100. You mean they're borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days to keep themselves afloat? This is a very fragile, okay, synthetic economy, man. Okay, it's very tacky, complicated. You see, this man has created so much artificial wealth, and it's just imploding. See, the whole earth is in debt, but America is borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days, man. But here it is, Trump is telling you that he's going to start garnishing for student loans. How hypocritical is that? Okay, nigga, you borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days. Well, nigga, when you borrow your $1 trillion, borrow my little $800 too. Pay yourself. Since you borrowing $1 trillion anyway, tack, my little 800 on there, and be done with it. You see, this is a very hypocritical government, man. And the economy is extremely fragile, man, and it's all finna collapse, man. Okay, and it's gonna play a major part, all right, of these nations, okay, going to war. Okay, so let's play this some more.
Collapse that threatens the legitimacy of its regime, and trust in the global reserve currency, the US dollar, is fracturing. Economists call this a structural convergence. Historians have a simpler name for it. They call it the pre-war era. In 1914, the global financial system broke and the world went to war. In 1939, the trade system broke and the world went to war. Now the indicators are flashing red again. Welcome to the Financial Coin Historian. Today, we are not just analyzing a recession. We are investigating the terrifying possibility that the financial crisis of 2026 will be the trigger for World War III. We will show you the mathematical inevitability of the debt cycle.
Can my dad go from XL to M with walking by Halloween?
We will expose the war economy that is already being built in the shadows. And we will explain why, when the check finally comes due, the price will be paid not in gold, but in blood. This is the story of the war that the bankers built. To understand 2026, we must first look back to the last time the world was this interconnected, this indebted, and this fragile. The year was 1914. We are told World War I started because an archduke was shot. But behind the scenes, a financial war had been raging for decades. The British Empire was the financial hegemon of the world. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. London was the center of trade. But Britain was an empire in decline. It was drowning in debt from maintaining its colonies. Its industrial dominance was being challenged by a rising power, Germany. Germany had better factories, better technology, and a hunger for markets. But Germany was locked out of the global financial system controlled by London. The British used their financial power to block German expansion. They restricted credit. They controlled the gold supply. This created a pressure cooker. Germany realized it could not grow economically within the British system. It had to break the system. When the financial channels closed, the military channels opened. The checkbook started the war before the bullet did. Bankers in London and New York had extended massive loans to alliances that forced nations into conflict to protect their investments. The lesson of 1914 is chilling. When an established economic power tries to contain a rising economic power using financial weapons, the rising power eventually calculates that war is the only path to survival. Today, replace Britain with the United States, replace Germany with China, and replace the gold standard with the US dollar. The players have changed, but the board is exactly the same, and we are moving pieces toward the same checkmate. The primary driver of the 2026 crisis is not ideology, it is arithmetic. We are living in the largest debt bubble in human history. Global debt has surpassed $315 trillion. That is more than 330% of global GDP. This means the world owes 3 times more than everything it produces in a year. In a normal cycle,
How the hell does the world owe more than 3 times than it produces in a year? Okay, showing you that it's just a wicked system that the devil has in play, man. It's just a wicked system, man. This man make this shit so complicated to where no one understands what's going on. Okay, but just to sum it up, man, how the hell, is the whole earth in debt? All right, and who do they owe? The elite. You see, so the earth owes the elite, all right, more than 3 times what it can produce, man. Okay, because it's a system that keeps you forever in debt. All right, because his banking doctrine is to keep people in debt, keep people saturated in interest, man, to the point that the earth owes more than 3 times of what it can produce, man. And who do they owe? The elite bankers, man. That's wicked. Okay, what's that in brother can post that in Sirach 10 8. And also, I believe it's Proverbs 22:7, because that's the devil banking's doctrine, is to saturate people in debt, compound interest to where, you're never paying the debt off. You're just permanently paying them. Because the goal is not to pay the debt off. The goal is to be indebted to them forever. Okay? Well, see, these things are imploding. All right? And you can't run a system like that forever, man, a debt-based system. You see? And these countries are now getting to the point of desperation. Okay? To where they just going to go to war with the system, man. Okay? This is Sirach 10:8 said, because of unrighteous dealings, this is the brother of Mark Abal. Okay? It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So as debt is going to play a major factor in these nations going to war. All right. In the midst of this third war, it's going to be when the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Okay. It's going to be translated to Israelites, man, under Yahweh Shai. Okay. It's going to be changed from Esau unto Jacob. Okay. So let's play this some more, man.
This debt would be cleared by a recession. Businesses would go bankrupt, debts would be written off, and the system would reset. But we're not in a normal cycle. We're in the sovereign debt supercycle. Governments themselves are the biggest debtors. The United States owes $34 trillion. Japan owes 250% of its economy. Europe is leveraged to the hilt. And here's the trap. Governments cannot go bankrupt in the traditional sense. When a government cannot pay its bills, it has only three choices. 1, austerity, cut spending, starve the people, and risk revolution. 2, default, refuse to pay, crash the global banking system, and lose all credibility. 3, inflation and war. History shows that option 3 is almost always the choice. Why war? Because war justifies everything. War justifies printing unlimited money. War justifies controlling the population. War justifies defaulting on debts owed to the enemy. If the United States owes trillions to China and suddenly they are at war, that debt is canceled. It is the ultimate financial reset button. By 2026, a massive wall of sovereign and corporate debt is set to mature. Trillions of dollars of loans will need to be refinanced at much higher interest rates. The math says it cannot be done. The system will face a liquidity crisis that makes 2008 look like a hiccup. And when faced with financial collapse, leaders throughout history have found that a foreign enemy is the best distraction from domestic ruin. The conflict has already begun. It is just not being fought with missiles yet. It is being fought with SWIFT codes and dollar clearing systems. For decades, the US dollar was a neutral utility, like the internet or the oceans. Everyone used it because it was convenient and safe. But in recent years, the United States has weaponized the dollar. By freezing the central bank reserves of Russia in 2022, Washington sent a message to the entire world. Your money is safe until we decide it isn't. This was the financial equivalent of a nuclear strike. It shattered the trust that held the global financial system together. Nations like China, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and India looked at that event and realized a terrifying truth. If they cross the United States, their entire national savings can be deleted with a keystroke. This has triggered a race for financial sovereignty. China is aggressively building the CIPS payment system to bypass the dollar. Russia is trading oil in rubles and yuan. The BRICS nations are hoarding gold at a rate not seen since the Second World War. They are building a sanction-proof economy. But here's the danger. Sanctions are a form of siege warfare. In history, a siege is considered an act of war. When you cut a nation off from money, you cut them off from food, medicine, and technology. You back them into a corner. A nation that is slowly suffocating economically has nothing to lose. Japan in 1941 was cut off from oil and steel by American sanctions. They calculated that their economy would collapse within months if they didn't act. So they attacked Pearl Harbor. They didn't attack because they thought they could win a long war. They attacked because the financial stranglehold gave them no choice. As we approach 2026, the tightening of financial sanctions on rival powers creates the exact same dynamic. We are squeezing them until they lash out. While the US struggles with debt, China is struggling with something arguably worse, stagnation. The Chinese economic miracle was built on real estate and exports. That model is dead. Their property market has imploded. Their population is shrinking faster than any nation in history. Youth unemployment is soaring. This creates a dangerous window of opportunity. Political scientists call it the peaking power trap. When a rising power realizes its growth has peaked, that it will never be stronger than it is right now, it becomes aggressive. It feels the urge to lock in gains before the decline sets in. China sees the US attempting to encircle it with alliances and technology bans. It sees its own internal economy slowing down. The Communist Party's legitimacy rests on economic growth. If growth stops, the only pillar of legitimacy left is nationalism. Taking Taiwan is not just a territorial ambition. It is a way to unite a fractured nation and seize control of the world's most critical resource, microchips. 2026 is cited by many military analysts, including former US commanders, as a potential window for this conflict. Why? Because by 2026, the US military modernization programs will not be fully ready, while China's naval buildup will be at its peak. It is a convergence of military readiness and economic desperation. If China's internal debt crisis triggers a collapse in 2026, the party may decide that a war is preferable to a revolution at home. We often think of finance as numbers on a screen, but finance is really a claim on real things: energy, food, metals. When the financial system breaks, those claims become worthless. You cannot eat a digital dollar. You cannot fuel a tank with a Bitcoin. The 2026 crisis will likely be a crisis of real assets. We are entering an era of resource scarcity. Oil production is plateauing. Critical minerals for the green transition, lithium, cobalt, copper, are in short supply. In a functioning global economy, nations trade for these resources. I give you dollars, you give me oil. But what happens when the trust in the currency breaks? If the dollar collapses or is rejected by the East, the US cannot simply print money to buy oil. It has to produce something valuable, or it has to take it. Historically, when trade breaks down, war takes its place. If China cannot buy energy with its yuan because no one trusts it, or if the US cannot buy electronics because its supply chains are severed, the logic of the market is replaced by the logic of the sword. We are seeing the formation of two distinct trading blocs: the West, US, Europe, Japan, and the East, China, Russia, Iran. These blocs are decoupling. They are building separate supply chains, separate internets, separate financial systems. This is the economic preparation for war. It is the building of the fortress walls before the siege begins. So why 2026 specifically?
So what we're seeing is these countries, put themselves, they're making preparations economically, because you don't just go to war and you don't have established, economy for war. Okay? Because everything changes in war. When you actually go to war, okay, you're not getting a 2-day prime order, okay, from China. Okay? Your small business, you're not getting those supplies that you get imported in. Everything is different now. Okay? And everything is prioritized towards war. So this is why you see these nations securing up resources. Because what does it take to fuel a military? It takes, all right, food and oil. Okay? And raw materials, man, to manufacture weapons. All right, weapons repairs, tank repairs, whatever it takes, raw resources. Okay, so what you're seeing these nations are doing are establishing, all right, a bartering system to where they can still trade amongst each other, okay, in the war. Okay, because you need trade agreements, trade routes, you got protected trade, so what they're doing now is they're setting themselves up economically, okay, when this war jumps off, man. All right, they're securing supply chains and trust, amongst, their alliances now. Okay, and it's mainly between the East and the West, like he broke it down. In 2026, this is the year, all right, where debts are being called in. Okay, and now it's going to create desperation because inflation going to go crazy, civil unrest, and that's the tool of the West, to devalue, okay, their enemy's currency to cause civil unrest. Okay, so this is what we're seeing happening, man. All these moves are being made. That's why Venezuela, you're wondering why, Venezuela has been the thing, because Venezuela has, a large oil reserve. Okay, and you have the East and the West, all right, Russia and America, they want a stake in their oil reserve, for fuel during war, because you run through a lot of oil, especially with modern warfare. All right, to operate these navies and air forces, you need a lot of oil, man. Okay, so they're trying to procure as many resources as possible. Okay, before the war actually starts. So this is what we're seeing building up. You know,
Why not 2030? Why not tomorrow? The answer lies in the corporate bond market. During the pandemic years of 2020 and 2021, corporations and governments borrowed trillions of dollars at near zero interest rates. They locked in 5-year loans because money was free. Do the math. 2021 plus 5 years equals 2026. In 2026, a massive wave of this debt comes due. Corporations will have to refinance, but they won't be refinancing at 0%. They will be refinancing at 5%, 6%, or 7%. Their interest payments will double or triple overnight. This is the maturity wall. Thousands of zombie companies that only survive because of cheap debt, will face immediate bankruptcy. This will trigger a wave of defaults that hits the banking system. When the banks buckle, the central banks will have to make a choice. Choice A, let the system collapse into a Great Depression. Choice B, print trillions of dollars to bail everyone out, triggering hyperinflation. History tells us they will choose choice B. They always do. But printing trillions in a world already divided, with supply chains broken, will not cause a boom. It will cause a currency collapse. And when a currency collapses, the government loses its ability to project power peacefully. It cannot pay for allies. It cannot subsidize peace. It has to use force to maintain its standing. The financial crisis of 2026 acts as the accelerant. It strips away the cushion of wealth that keeps nations polite. It leaves them raw, desperate, and armed. There's a final, darker reason why financial crisis leads to war: domestic politics. In the United States and Europe, the wealth gap is wider than at any time since the 1920s. The middle class is being hollowed out by inflation. Trust in institutions is at an all-time low. When the economy crashes in 2026, the anger of the population will be uncontrollable. People will demand answers. They will demand heads to roll. For the ruling elite, this is a terrifying prospect. How do you unite a fractured, angry, impoverished nation? You give them a common enemy. War is the ultimate social unifier. It silences dissent. It brands opposition as treason. It allows the government to seize control of the economy under emergency powers. It happened in the 1930s. The Great Depression fueled the rise of fascism in Europe and nationalism in Asia. It turned neighbors into enemies and paved the road to World War II. In 2026, faced with a populace that has lost its savings and its future, leaders may find that war is the only way to hold on to power. It is the rally around the flag effect, weaponized to save a failing regime. Let's game out the scenario. It's late 2025.
yeah, man. So this is where we at now with it. As he went through history, he went into the economy of war. All right, and these nations have no choice. Okay, so as they try to restart the system and reestablish, something new, they're going to fight in the midst of this, man. And it's the Lord's doing. Okay, it's the will of Yahweh Bashim Shai. Okay, so let's go here. I got another video I want to get into. So this is because I want to go into their history first. So now what we see in Iran is going to make more sense. Okay, because now Iran, all right, is they're being forced. Okay, if a brother want to post it at the Proverbs 21:1. Okay, how the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the Lord move chess pieces around, okay, and putting these nations in a predicament to where they got to go to war to survive, man. Just as people are going into survival mode under this economy, well, these nations finna go into survival mode, man. Okay, and these nations don't want to be left out of this new world order system. So it's going to go from them, trying to, deal economically and make deals and set themselves up in position, to thrive in this, this new world order. Okay, but dealing with Esau is a lot of treachery. Okay, so these nations know that Esau will cut them out to play. So as we see certain nations, okay, become cut out to play, they're gonna become hostile, man. Okay, because like I said, Iran has been being conservative, playing the fence, trying to be on their best behavior, okay, because they wanted to participate in this NWO. Okay, they don't want to be left behind. All right, they have ambitions within this new world order to be a global player. Okay, well, see, the West has other plans. All right, so what we seen in Iran, you know, is they're to the point now where they're gonna have to make a decision. Okay, they can't just sit comfortably and you know, be conservative. When it comes to how they move, it's gonna come to a point they're gonna have to be drastic. Okay, and this also part of the lease of the flock, drawing these other nations out because it's the small hats. All right, you best believe that it's the Mossad, all right, and the CIA behind what we're seeing over here in Iran, these protests. Okay, so let's play this real quick.
Iran is back in the headlines today. Yesterday, we told you about its latest satellite launch from Russia. Today, it's about a growing unrest. Protests have broken out in parts of Tehran. Shopkeepers and traders have taken to the streets. They're angry because Iran's currency has collapsed and food prices have soared. Iran's currency is called the rial. It has fallen to a record low. It stands at 1.42 million to the US dollar. $1 is worth 1.42 million rial. This has pushed up prices.
$1, $1 is equal to 1.4 million. All right, of Iran's currency, the rial. Okay, and then when America does that, it makes it easy for them to buy people out. All right, to get people in high offices and just regular people to sell out and participate in these protests, man, or orchestrate these protests. Okay, that's what happened in Syria. They devalued Syria's currency so much, okay, that America was able to buy out, a lot of people, which made it easy for them to topple the Syrian government. Okay, so they're attempting to do the same thing in Iran. Now, the big thing with Iran is Iran itself has a lot of military might, okay, to just, fall like a Syria. No, that's not going to happen. And then you have Russia and China, all right, that depend on Iran so they can avoid, okay, sanctions from the West. It softens the blow for them. You see? So that's a part of the games that this devil play, man. Okay?
Across the board, basic goods have become unaffordable. The government says it is listening, but the pressure is deeper than one crisis. Years of sanctions and restricted trade have left the economy fragile, and now that pressure is boiling over. Our next report has more.
2025 has been a year of strain for Iran. From regional conflict and rising tensions with Israel and the U.S. to water shortages and power cuts, pressure has come from every direction for the country. Now that pressure is spilling onto the streets. This week, protests have erupted in parts of Tehran. Shopkeepers and traders have taken to the roads. They are frustrated and angry, not only over politics, but over survival. At the center of it all is Iran's collapsing currency. The rial has fallen to nearly 1.42 million to the US dollar. This is its weakest level ever. Just a year ago, it was trading far stronger. For ordinary Iranians, this fall has had an immediate impact. Their savings have lost value, product prices change daily, and running a business has become increasingly unpredictable. Many shopkeepers say they have no choice but to close. Suppliers are reluctant to quote prices, and customers are cutting back on even basic purchases. The pressure is not limited to the markets. Official figures show inflation reached 42.2% in December. Food prices rose by 72%, while health and medical costs jumped 50% compared to last year. For families already struggling,
And just put that in perspective, okay? Just that percentage, which that's crazy because that's almost double, you know. So things that would cost $10, okay, now they cost $17. You see? And imagine if you're making big purchases to run the business, okay? The same shipment that costs you, 10,000, okay, for your business, well now that shipment costs you 17,000. Okay. So inflation is crippling. That's immediate, okay, effect, man. Okay, which is causing an outcry. Plus, with these agent provocateurs in the mix, orchestrating these protests and orchestrating a resistance. Okay, now we're going to see if it goes to the next level because this is the time when America begins to arm. Okay, the resistance. The Iran resistance group. They'll put a catchy name on it for the news. Okay, and call it the Iranian, resistance. You know, and they just have all type of weapons out of nowhere, and then it'll be, all right, America make it seem like they're going in to be the hero. Okay, which I got another clip where they're already telegraphing that's what they want to do, man. So this day, 2026, man, hey, week one, okay, and the stage is being set, the tone is being set, man. Okay, so let's play this some more.
those numbers translate into hard decisions about what to buy and what to go without. The government says it understands the frustration.
The government will listen patiently, even if there are harsh voices, because we believe that our people are patient enough, and when their voices are raised, the pressure that is being put on them is high.
President Masoud Pezeshkian has acknowledged public anger. In a post on X, he has promised to address what he called the legitimate demands of the people. Parliamentary leaders have also promised action to protect purchasing power.
People's concerns and protests regarding livelihood problems must be responded to with full responsibility and dialogue, especially with representatives of guilds, and taking necessary measures focused on increasing people's purchasing power and reforming the economic decision-making process must be placed on the agenda of executive officials.
But for many Iranians, the crisis feels deeper than any single policy decision. Years of sanctions have limited trade and access to foreign currency. Oil exports remain constrained, investment has slowed, and confidence in the economy has steadily eroded. What is unfolding now is not sudden. It is the result of pressures that have been building quietly, year after year. In 2022 and 2023, nationwide protests had erupted, exposing the deep political and social fault lines. Those demonstrations were met with force, but the pressures behind them never disappeared. And today, those strains are resurfacing, pushing people to the streets. As 2025 winds up, Iran faces a familiar question. How long can daily life continue under this kind of strain?
Want the facts?
Yeah, man. So the pressure, is being put on Iran, all right, which is not going to be on Iran by itself. It's going to be on Russia and China because Iran can't implode, and fall to the West, okay, because they want regime change, okay. So Iran, all right, so like where this nigga come from, okay, Iran can't implode and fall to the West, okay, because China and Russia are dependent on Iran, okay, to power their economy, okay. So let's go here. And I'm gonna get this too. Let's get this precept real quick. This is brother Israelite United one last time. Proverbs 21:1, it said, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. You know, so it's the Lord that's playing on the minds of these leaders, okay, and putting these leaders in a position to where they only have one option, man, and that's to fulfill prophecy, okay. You know, the brother got verse 2. You see, it says, this is brother beyond Yasha Allah 144, Proverbs 21:2. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. Okay, Yahweh Bashim al Shah pondereth the hearts. You see, which is the mind. And see, the Lord is putting these nations in a position to where, you know, their decision in their mind is the right thing to do in their situation. You know, so he's putting their backs against the wall to where they got to fight their way out. You know, because Iran can't keep going on like this, man. Okay, a lot of these nations can't keep going the way that they're going. They're gonna have to make a drastic change. Okay, and we know the West, you know, hypes up, you know, the protests. You know, so we got to factor that in too. All right, they exaggerate, but we do know, okay, that their currency, that the Iranian currency is dropping. Okay, and this is just, you know, one domino. Okay, so we'll see, you know, if this domino fall and it escalates, okay, into an exchange, you know, another conflict. You see, so we'll be watching. But now, right on cue, okay, right on cue. This is the response to the American government. And this is a goddamn hypocrite, man. You know, Trump. So now Trump has said U.S. will intervene if Iran starts killing protesters. Okay, this is a all right. This is American. This is a sovereign government telling another sovereign government how to treat its protesters. Okay, when America is passing legislation that if you're anti-Trump, you're going to be looked at as a domestic terrorist. Okay, so this is very hypocritical, man. And America don't give a damn about no Iranian protesters, man. All right, because you still have dumb, stupid, simple people. If a brother can post it, I believe that's Proverbs 14:12. How the simple believe every word, and you still gonna have dumb, stupid Americans saying, you know, believing that, all right, America has some type of moral high ground, and they're all about defending, you know, the helpless, man. When America is the most tyrannical government on the earth. Okay, they just mask it with giving you people endless bread and circus, all right, and convenience. Okay, so let's play this one.
Our top story at this hour is coming in from Iran, where protests in the country have taken a new turn. It is no longer just about Tehran. As citizens continue to hit the streets, fifth day in a row, their anger reverberated in the bastion of Iran's supreme leader. Demonstrations have broken out in Qom, which is considered to be one of the holiest cities in Iran. Prior to 1979, the opposition to former King Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was led by this very city. Ayatollah Khamenei also studied in Qom and became a prominent cleric there. Until now, protests have spread to 32 cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, Karaj, and Fasa, across more than 17 provinces of Iran. At least 7 people have been killed in the clashes between the protesters and security forces. Nearly 33 people have been injured as well, whereas 119 protesters have been arrested. As Iran's internal turmoil continues, American President Donald Trump has fired a fresh salvo. He has signaled that United States is ready to mount an offensive on Iran. Trump has assured Iranian citizens that his country's forces will come to their rescue if peaceful protesters are killed. Now remember, these protests have seen intense sloganeering as well. Khamenei's legitimacy has directly been challenged. A video has gone viral which shows a group of residents in
And here it and here it is. All right, you have a homeless crisis in America. Okay, you have a job market. Okay, that's diminishing in America. You see, you have inflation in America. You have the middle class being priced out. Okay, more poison, in the food. Okay, the FDA just allowed glyphosate, higher level of glyphosate, which is the Monsanto pesticide. Okay, straight poison. Okay, here it is. This man is absolutely demon to the American population. But as long as he give you niggas, all right, a piece of beer, okay, the game, okay, dating sites, okay, why he destroys you, man. He just wines and dines you with cheap, okay, bread and circus. Why he destroys you, man. Okay, so this devil, he's running the same game that he did in Iraq, okay, that he did in Afghanistan, that he did in Libya. Okay, it's the same play. All right, it's just Iran is the target now. So we're gonna see. Okay, but let's play this some more. All right, and remember the West gonna exaggerate like it's just, you know, like it's just horrible. But the reason why it's inflation is because of American sanctions. America is the reason why, okay, uh, people are being priced out. It's Western banking system, okay, because they want to weaken Iran, okay, because Iran represents a resistance to the West in their region, okay, but they push it as if they're these liberators, like their whole thing is to liberate Iran from the tyrannical regime. Okay, and America just wants to bring liberty and modernization and equality and liberty, transcend the traditional ways. Okay, so this is what we're seeing, man. This is interesting. We're gonna see how it play out. So let's play this some more.
in Hamadan city chanting death to the dictator. Protesters have also called for the return of the former king's son, Reza Pahlavi, who is in exile. Another video has emerged from Hamadan in which protesters' anger is on full display. They are seen beating a security personnel. The Iranian government, meanwhile, has tried to mollify the protesters. It initially called for dialogue and replaced the central bank governor. However, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has predictably claimed a foreign hand in these protests. In a recent speech, he asserted that Iran is engaged in a full-scale war. He also blamed enemies of Iran for seeking internal chaos through economic pressure.
We are engaged in a full-scale war. Right now, the enemy has placed most of its hopes on knocking us down through economic pressure. You cannot conquer a nation with bombs, fighter jets, or missiles. To defeat us, they would have to come and face us on the ground.
And he's talking directly to America. All right, in the small hats. He's talking to the West. Telling them that they're gonna have to come get on the ground. You see? This is what playing out, man. So now, okay, it's just to see, okay, how's the Iranian government going to react to this provocation? Because they don't have, they don't have too many cards in their hand. Okay, then see how Russia and China react to this. Okay, because it doesn't go well for them for Iran to be destabilized by the West. Okay, so we're gonna see.
Remember, Iran's protests come in the wake of currency collapse. Now, one US dollar is equivalent to 1.42 million Iranian rial. The inflation rate in December soared to 42.2%. In comparison to a year ago, food prices have risen by 72%, and medical items are up by 50%. With no let up in the spate of protests, the question remains whether the Iranian government can salvage this situation. Let's try and get an understanding of what the situation is in Iran. I'm joined by Mr. Fouad Izadi. He's Associate Professor, Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Mr. Izadi, thank you for joining us and spending the time to talk with us on Beyond. I want to start by...
So he's gonna have a different perspective. He's boots on the ground. These Iranian professors. Which I'll be looking up some more. So Lord willing, we'll follow up on the happenings, what's going on with boots on the ground. And get an alternative perspective. You know, but he's gonna come with a alternate perspective of how the West has a part in this, plays a part in this. Because the West will make it seem as if it's just poor economic management by Iran. Okay, but no, man, this is U.S. weaponizing. All right, the West weaponizing the global, market. Okay, to cause economic upheaval. For regime change. Okay, so let's play this.
by asking you how you look at this. These are protests that started as an economic concern for the shopkeepers. Now, of course, they've reached one of the strongholds of the supreme leader. Clearly, this is more than just economic concern. There seems to be a lot of pent-up frustration that even the university students are now joining these protests.
Yes, I think this is what the Iranian government is trying to do. Separate people who have economic concerns. As you know, Iran has been under an economic warfare by the United States, and this is affecting ordinary citizens. So separating these people, people with genuine economic problems, with organized opposition that is on the payroll of the United States and Israel, is one of the objectives of the Iranian government. As you reported correctly, the slogans that you hear at these riots support the former Shah of Iran. And there, in Tehran, we have about 10 million people, residents. About 200 people showed up. So as you see in your pictures, you have maybe 100 people, 200 people.
So what you have, in Tehran, you have 10 million people, but when you look at these protests, there's only 200 people. So you got to factor in too. Now people are catching hell, okay, under these sanctions. You see, but the West blows it out of proportion as if the whole 94 million, population of Tehran want regime change. You see, but they're able to put, these angles and protests to make it seem like it's just tens of thousands of people that's in the uproar. Okay. So out of 10 million people, he's saying only 200, okay, showed up to protest. And it's easy to get, 200 agent provocateurs to show up and protest. Okay. Easy work, man. So the CIA and the Mossad, all right, which the Mossad is the Israeli, the small hat secret service. Okay, and them and the CIA, they do the most wickedness in the planet Earth, man. You know, but so yeah, you always got to factor that into the exaggeration of Western media. Okay, as if you just have 10 million people waiting outside the president of Iran's you know house, waiting on that nigga to come out. Okay, so let's play this.
Not a very huge crowd that are present at these protests, riots, in comparison to millions that are concerned about United States deciding to make Iran another Libya. You remember what happened in Libya during Arab Spring. There were some demonstrations. The United States made sure that these demonstrations were violent by supplying the people with weapons. And then they attacked Libya, and Libya is not in a good shape. And Iranians realize this. So overwhelming majority of people realize Trump is not interested in human rights. Netanyahu is not interested in human rights. They just finished engaging in a genocide in Gaza, killing over 70,000 people. So overall, I think when you look at this, will pass the same way other attempts by the United States to destabilize Iran has passed.
Mr. Zadi, while I understand when you say that this might also these protests might have Western influence on them, the fact of the matter is that the Iranian economy is not doing very well amid the sanctions. There has been frustration among traders as well as far as the rial falling against the USD is concerned. And there are other issues as well. As far as the Pezeshkian government is concerned, how do you think they can actually quell these protests and, fulfill some of the demands that these protesters are wanting from the government?
This is going to be very difficult. If it was easy, they would have done it already. Being in an economic war, a military war with the United States is not an easy task. But remember, say, for example, in India, there are some people who have economic problems. But do they want China to attack India because they have economic problems? No. In fact, last time United States attacked Iran, there was this rally around the flag effect. People engaged in nationalism, nationalist slogans against the foreign enemy. And they...
Yeah, so we'll follow up on that. I got a few more sources I got to check. Dealing with the protests, and we'll get another narrative, alternative narrative from the West. Which they're going to make it seem as if the Iranian military is just mauling people, just slaughtering people in the streets, and they're just tyrannical and savages, and poor management, and the evil regime. So you're going to hear these things, and we'll see. Okay, because if they can get these things to catch hold in the West, which would force Iran to have to respond in a particular way. Okay, but we'll see. And it could be quelled. To where things are. Let me see. Yeah, to things are quelled to a point. So we'll see. But it's interesting. What's happening now. Let's go to let's see, the brother got. All right, this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15. Okay. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 15. Salaki. Okay, it said the simple, believeth every word, but the patient man looketh well to his going. Okay. So you're going to have the simple that's going to believe every word, that Western media spews out. Like Western media, okay, doesn't have the biggest reputation for just lying. Okay. So you're going to have that factor as well. And then you're going to have the factor, okay, that how about Shema Shah, is making these nations, okay, gear up for war. Okay. That's a factor as well. Okay, and that's one of the signs that we were, told to look for, as we come down the stretch, before the return of Yahweh Shai. This is Matthew 24 and in 6 it says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we see these protests, and we know, all right, that eventually it's going to lead to war. Okay, and what we're seeing is just things are constantly being pushed to the point of no return. You see, the way that they're interfering with the economy and pushing the propaganda on Iran, well, it's pushing is making Iran have to posture themselves for war with the West. Okay, well, they can't be conservative. So we see these things, and it doesn't mean that Iran and America and small hats, gonna be at an all-out war. Okay, by the end of the weekend. Okay, but it is setting tones for war later on down the road. Okay, it said, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows, man. So we're seeing the beginning of sorrows. Okay, because eventually these nations gonna lock up. All right, so we just keep up, with particular things, okay, that are trending. All right, towards prophecy being fulfilled. And we know the main three things is Jacob's trouble, okay, / civil unrest, the MOT being mandated, and this third world war, man. And they're all intertwined, and they're all, building up. Okay, so Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters was edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful and shalom.